To day 5 of 7 Secrets of Success. We are going to talk about collaboration and teamwork in today's session. This is for the record sake, for the video. And like other days, please participate actively in chat. Keep the audio muted to the extent possible, and whenever you want to speak, you can unmute yourself and let the questions flow in the chat box. So today is the day 5. We had already finished reprogram the subconscious mind on day 1, enhance emotional intelligence on day 2, discover the purpose of life in day 3, and manage time productively. That was yesterday. And today we are going to talk about collaboration in teams, and tomorrow is communication and empathy. And 7th, they will be talking about yoga and how we can take care of the 4 dimensions. So in collaboration in teams, we are going to touch upon the topics like what is cooperation versus competition when it comes to teams, and why do people operate out of a scarcity mentality, and how to get team members to collaborate for higher productivity, meaning of mastermind groups and the benefits, and how do you develop team within the, how do you develop trust within the team. Now we have some, people must be feeling hungry now. So I am offering something. Pizza is there, buffet is there. What will you, if there are hungry set of people, a set of hungry people, and they are offered one pizza, what is the general tendency of people? Let's get it in the chat. What will be the general tendency of the people when they are offered a single pizza and they're all hungry? So they will run, pounce upon the pizza, because everyone wants to get the bigger piece. If possible, the full pizza itself. If not, then at least the biggest piece. So there is competition, and the competition is arising out of the scarcity. Only one pizza is there, and 5 people have to eat it, and no consideration of any culture, civilization, all those nonsense, because hunger will take over all those things. The first one to pick up will probably grab this, and the most powerful one will probably will grab it up. But if a buffet is offered, what should be the tendency? What should be the tendency? I'm not asking what is the tendency, but what should be the tendency? And a buffet is offered. Let's hear from you.
Everyone will have only whatever he needs it.
Correct. Because no hurry, no shortage. If it finishes, the hotel will supply further, replenish it. 5-star hotel buffet, it's like that. You eat whatever you want, whatever extent you want. You choose whatever is that you like, and there's no question of finishing. You're paid for the buffet and you'll get. But if a pizza scarcity mentality is operating in a pizza which is an abundance mentality, how will people act? And have you seen people acting like that? In buffet also acting out of a scarcity syndrome. For example, marriage buffets, what people do normally?
Yeah, people want to go first.
and make it full Himalaya, Mount Everest out of their plate with all sort of eatables. Whether they will eat it or not, we don't know. But they will grab whatever is available, because the scarcity mentality says, when I go for second time fill up, refill, if suppose it finishes, so let me bring it now itself. Because the scarcity has probably gone into the subconscious mind. Even in a situation where there is abundance available, our mind doesn't accept it, that abundance available. So you don't have to grab like a miserly person. So unless we change the mindset just by saying that, yes, don't worry, there is plenty available for everyone. And what does our upbringing teach us out of these two mentality? Does it teach scarcity mentality or abundance mentality right from the school days? One or two. One is scarcity, two is abundance. Which one is pumped into our, programmed into a subconscious mind? One. KG school onwards, parents will start comparing one child with another child. My child was able to sing 3 songs, and immediately other neighbor says, only 3, is it? My daughter has been singing 5 songs for the last 2 months. Ram Singh says 2, but 2 is not taught, unfortunately, in education system, because education system goes by marks. If you get 100 or 100, you are the star of the class. If you get 99, you are not there. And you have to have first, second, third, only one rank available. So you have to grab that rank. Only one place for first, one place for second. And if you are 10th or 11th, you are no good as a human being. So both will have to learn. But unfortunately, the upbringing environment encourages the competition mentality. So you compete in the school, you compete in the college among your classmates. You compete in the examination, aptitude tests for a company. You compete in the interview. So all along you compete. And day one, on induction day, the HR manager makes some very, very lofty statement that we encourage teamwork in this company. We all work as a team. Now, all that continuous subconscious mind upbringing cannot vanish just because now there is a need for cooperation and no competition. Because now that you have a job, so in teams, people will still continue to operate out of the scarcity mentality that they will not part with their information, whatever they have, to the team member, because they want to become a better person in the appraisals rather than the team member. So it becomes very difficult for the manager to inculcate that habit, because consciously it has been put into our mind that we have to compete, because there is scarcity. But companies cannot operate out of competition within the team. The companies to company, they have to compete. But within the team members have to cooperate. And for that, there is a change of mindset required. The subconscious has to say, now that I got a job after all this competition, now is the time to get into a cooperative mentality, because now there is abundance. And even if abundance is not there, I have to tell there is enough for everybody, like a buffet. So that is a manager's responsibility. The manager himself or herself encourages this competition among the team members. The team will not be able to do much, because there is only little that we can do alone. Only when we are in company with each other, help each other, exchange ideas without any selfishness, we will get the highest results. Now, does it mean that everywhere you have to cooperate? For example, this is a place where 100-meter race is taking place. Now, can we tell, because I am telling no, after adulthood, we should not be competing, we should be cooperating. So why these people have to compete like this? Is there any other method by which they can run the race? Or is competing bad in this scenario? And if it is not bad, tell me why it is not bad. Let's hear from you. Should they compete or cooperate here in the 100-meter race? And why should they do either of them? winner is rewarded. So they have to compete because there is scarcity. There is only one first place. There is only second place. Only one third place. There is no fourth place. Nobody even remembers. Even second person, nobody remembers. So I have to compete because there is genuine scarcity. And more than that, they are not team. They are individual competitors. So there is no justification for them to cooperate. They have to compete. So where there is competition, they have to compete. But problem is where there is no competition, then we still compete instead of cooperating. That is where the trouble comes. So the same 10 people who are running this race, suppose they become a part of a football team. Now in the football team, within the team, they have to cooperate. And how do they cooperate within the, relay race also got similar cooperation within the team because they have to help each other. Because then as a team, they are working. So Raghuram sir, you're right. So in the football team, how do they cooperate? Passing the ball. But actually, there is a reward for the person who actually scores the goal also, no? Because the person who is the one who scores the goal, he's rewarded. His name comes out. But in that selfishness that I must be the one to score the goal, if I keep the ball within me, and I say I will take all the way to the opponent's goal post, somebody will snatch. So I have to rise above that selfishness and say, let me pass it to somebody. He will pass another person. I may or may not get at the end, but somebody from my team will be able to score the goal. And that is what I want. My team has to win. Chak de India. That is the strategy. And anybody knows the technical football name for these short passes within the teams, which was popular by Spain in the earlier World Cup football championship. Technical name for the short passes within a football team. It is called tiki-taka. It's called tiki-taka. Spain practiced it and popularized it. And that year, they were on top and their average number of passes was the highest. And Brazil that year was in the bottom and Brazil's average number of passes was the least. The next World Cup, Spain did not win. That doesn't mean the concept is wrong. So when you pass, the implementation has to be correct. The other person, your own team member should be there to receive the ball. So the practice is not there. So that's what I was mentioning. Knowledge is not power. Implementation of the knowledge is power. So Spain practiced the same philosophy, but unfortunately the practice was probably not good enough. And therefore they are not able to get rewards out of this principle. So same thing in the case of even an office scenario. When you help each other, your team wins. So based on win and lose, there can be 2 into 2, 4 permutation combinations. One is win-win. So between two people, the two people can be customer and supplier. The two people can be manager and associate. The two people can be a colleague and another colleague. It can be one husband and wife. In every situation, both need to win. Only when both teams win, both of them win, there is a chance that the relationship will continue. Win-lose, where I am winning all the time. If a manager, if I am winning all the time, that I don't care about the associate and his or her interest, then that associate will never remain there. If it is lose-win, where I am losing all the time and the other person is winning, again. And one more is lose-lose. Any cases I am, Hindi mein they say, मैं तो डूब ही रहा हूँ, तुम्हें भी लेके डूबूंगा. I am drowning, any case, but I'll ensure that you also drown along with me. I'll take you along. And there's one more called win, only win. Can you guess what this could be? Just win. And how is it different from win-lose? Anyone? No means I will tell. Win means it is a worst form of win-lose. Worst form of win-lose. At least in win-lose, I know that I have won. Other party has lost. I may feel sorry for that person. Uska nuksan ho gaya, uska loss ho gaya. But I couldn't care as such. But I know that the other person has lost. In win, yeah, it's like dictatorship. I only care about myself. I don't care about the other person. I don't even know that other person exists. मुझे कुछ फर्क ही नहीं पड़ेगा. Not even some fleeting sympathy. So worst form of, so I don't care for the other person. I'll give an example, then you can realize what it is. So that is also not possible. Win-win is not good. Win-win is the only thing which is good. Win-lose is not good. Lose-win is not good. Lose-lose, bad. Win is bad. So if you are not able to get into win-win situation, then you have to take the diagonally opposite one, that is the no deal. Because if both parties cannot win, then let's not even get into the business. Because then both of us will be sad about it. So there was an example of Infosys during its early days, when it was a very small company. And they had only one major customer client, that is GE. And they had 1 year contract. Now, second year, renewal of the contract. So GE said, we want to renew this, but then it has to be at a discount from last year's rates, maintenance contract for the software maintenance, at discount from the earlier one. Now, all the partners of Narayan Murthy, the other 7 of them, they said, in any case, we don't have any big customer. So without big customer, we can't sustain also. So let's go for it, because we are too small a company to dictate terms to GE. If you lose GE, then how will you survive? And Narayan Murthy, the only person who came out of the meeting, and he told them, no, we will not go for it, because it will start as lose-win, where Infosys is losing and GE is winning, because they are getting at a discount. But in the long run, what will happen? I don't have enough budget. So I will not be able to take care of my own employee workforce. I may not be able to promote them. I may not be able to retain the best ones. And slowly they will leave and go for better opportunities elsewhere. And because of that, the project quality will suffer. There will be more complaints on the software maintenance by GE itself. So what starts as lose-win, where Infosys is losing and GE is winning, finally end up as lose-lose, where Infosys is losing the budget, money, and GE is losing on the project quality. So let us not go for it, because unnecessarily bad blood. And that is the time they decided to increase their marketing presence in the Americas. And then there was no going back. Imagine if they had taken up this one, they wouldn't have been able to grow as a big company, because lose-win would have made sure that they remain a small company, because there is no budget for it, there is no money for expansion. So if win-win is not possible, then the only option available is no deal in every situation. Now, Manohar Parrikar, when he was a defense minister, told a story. I read it somewhere. He didn't tell in front of me, but I read in it. Now, his name, Parrikar, comes from the village Pari, from where he hails. And when he was growing up as a young man, there is Pari is known for the big size and tasty watermelons, growing watermelons in that village. And there was one big farmer who used to have the biggest size watermelons. harvesting season, as soon as the watermelons are harvested, he will conduct a competition of watermelon eating competition. And he'll invite everybody in the village, come and free eat watermelons to your heart's content. And whoever is able to eat the biggest ones, the most number of kilos, is declared as the winner. So continuing for many, many years, after some years, the old man died and his children started looking after the farm. They said the old man was a mad chap. The biggest of watermelons is wasting into using the competition. Okay, he was our father. We couldn't say anything that time. So now that he is no longer there, we will have the competition because we don't want to stop it, what he had started. But we don't have to give it the biggest ones. In any case, you are measuring in kilos. Whether you take a bigger one or a smaller one doesn't make a difference. We'll take the ordinary watermelons and give it for the competition. And it continued for 1 year, second year, third year. And they found out after third year, the quality and the size and taste of the watermelons was going down and they were losing market share. The buyers were not willing to buy from them because the size is small and they're not very tasty also. So can anybody guess why this happened? Is it a curse of the people who are otherwise getting free watermelons? Let's hear from some people.
No, actually, the seeds that they are used to give from the bigger one was used for sowing. So now
Correct.
they started giving the smaller one, and they started losing the taste and the.
Correct. Very well got, both you as well as Vrindavan Prasha sir, Raghavendra also. What we give to others. So what the old man was doing, of course, was charity, but biggest watermelons, they will eat the juice, they will spit out the seeds. That seed is there in the farm itself. And he will collect all those seeds. He will use those seeds for the next harvest, next planting. So better quality seeds, the next harvest also is good. And the children didn't understand that concept. Their seed quality went down and therefore the harvesting also went down. So he was actually operating in a win-win situation. Like I give the watermelon to you, you give the seed to me. Because if I open the seed, every one of them, he doesn't get that many seeds for next cultivation. Another story earlier when I was in Cognizant, the vice chairman Lakshmi Narayan, he told. There was a farm of the sweet corn, American sweet corn. So he used to get the best quality seeds for his particular farm, paying good amount of money for that. And he'll also distribute the same seeds to his neighbors. And every year there will be competition to see whose farm is getting the best output. And best means the largest output per acre, per hectare. How many quintals of sweet corn. And he was always winning. But his habit was that he's also giving the same seeds to other people also. And somebody asked him, why are you wasting your money in giving the seeds to other people? So what would be his reply? You'll be able to guess it from the earlier thing.
What exactly we give to the other farm, in fact, the seeds, if only their seeds is also good. In cross-pollination also the seeds will be.
Correct. Because the dust and the bees and the insects will bring pollen from the other field to here. If the other field, the neighboring field is of low quality seeds, that pollen plus this pollen combined, the quality of the seeds, his own seeds will come down. And the growth will not be there. So what you give comes back in abundance. So this can only be practiced when we know that there is abundance in the universe. So law of attraction says there is abundance. You ask, you believe, and you get it. Ask for it, believe that you are going to get it, not with fear. Full desire with hope and happiness that I have got it, and then you get it. And this is what you have to practice in teams. Same concept. Now, those of you understand Hindi can reply. If you don't understand Hindi, I will translate this in English also. चलते रहो, बढ़ते रहो, अपनी मंजिल की तरफ बढ़ते चलो. बने रहो सबके आगे, अपने साथियों से आगे रहो, किसी को आगे निकलने न दो, तभी तो तुम एक अच्छा डैश बनोगे. I want you to fill up that dash. Dash में क्या आएगा? इंसान बनोगे, फिर
अच्छा इंसान बनोगे.
अच्छा इंसान बनोगे. सभी को, किसी को आगे नहीं निकलने दो. तभी तो टीम लीडर बनोगे. खिलाड़ी बनोगे. I saw it written behind a truck when I was in Pune on the highway, and it was written तभी तो तुम एक अच्छा ट्रक ड्राइवर बनोगे. Does it sound? There are 3 lanes in a highway. The left successful नहीं है. 3 lanes in a highway: left, middle, and rightmost. Indian scenario. What is meant to be on the rightmost lane? Which type of vehicle?
Heavy vehicles.
No, overtakes.
Because you have been seeing heavy vehicles. Ananya is right, because she only seen heavy vehicles on the rightmost lane. They are not supposed to be there. That extreme right is only meant for overtaking. High speed lane, correct. Middle is for normal. And heavy vehicles, which are slow moving vehicles, are supposed to be in the left lane. That is the rule. Not implemented. That's why you see lorries, even tempos, where whether you go from Bangalore to Chennai, where that Krishnagiri, there is a up there, or you come from Mumbai to Pune, where Khandala Ghat, there is up there. You'll find 3 trucks occupying 3 lanes, and cars can't even pass because all 3 are occupying the lanes and they can't even overtake each other. Now, what is the mentality of that particular truck driver? My road, my vehicle, I have to be here because here I am very comfortable. There is nobody to overtake me and I don't have to bother overtaking others. I'll stick to this lane and continue on the lane because then I can close my eyes also and go, because I don't have to worry about who is in front of me, because I will not be able to overtake anybody who is in front of me in any case. So that is typical win mentality, where I don't care about the other person. Any other examples from the road scenario about win mentality, where I don't care about other person? Anybody can think of?
Not stopping on the signal.
Correct,
Just going.
correct. Putting everybody's life into jeopardy. Putting white halogen lamps on the headlight. What does the other person in front of him, if he's opposite direction, what does the drive, or how difficult it is for the driver? But this man was put the white halogen lamp, which is illegal. He gets blinded. So the person who is putting the white light says, my car, my money, my road, my light. Everything is selfishness. Me, no dipper also. They don't use dipper. Legally, they are supposed to use dipper. Legally, they are not supposed to white halogen lamp. But because implementation is not there, they should be fined actually. But his mentality is what matters. I'm not talking about a legal system in the country. The person should realize that it is blinding for other person. And if it is too blinded, he might come and collide with me also. Ultimately, that win also, I might also lose my life. But that mindset change has to happen. So that is where I said I'll give example of typical. So there are people in teams also. They don't care about others. Unka dal galna chahiye bas. Their work has to be done. They don't care about other people, other team members, which is sad. Now, one more problems that come in teams, that is called groupthink, when every one of them is thinking alike. So the first lesson that we learned is that win-win is required for the team to win. In that case, we should not allow anybody to have win-lose or lose-win, etc. Even if it is manager and associate, everyone should cooperate in a typically like the football manner. Give my best to the other person, take the best from the other person, give and take. What you give comes back in multiple terms. When that mentality is there, energy flow will be there. There is one more type of thing when everybody is so helping nature of each other. Everyone is thinking alike. No discord, no jagda, total pyar mohabbat. Everybody is thinking alike. Is the opposite of complete competition. What is the problem in this one? They will adopt a situation where even if that one person is there who has got some idea, no. What we are doing is not, what other things are thinking is not correct. No. It should change. All other people will tell him to shut up. And they will stop it. So let us, groupthink is this one. I'll come back to the earlier slide later. Tendency of highly cohesive groups to lose their critical evaluating capabilities. That means like Bhed Bakra, they'll just follow the leader without any dissenting voice, which is sad. And they will say, we have no weaknesses. We are such a great team. Nobody can beat us. We are strong. And it becomes a sort of illusion for them. They're blinded by their so-called cohesiveness and irrationally proud of their. That means practically they are not looking into their own blind spots that things can be wrong. So can you any example of companies or armies which have suffered from this sort of groupthink and gone down the drain? I'll give an example in the case. Second World War, Pearl Harbor attack. Fascism, correct. During Hitler's Germany, the entire force under Hitler didn't have any dissenting voice at all. They just followed his orders. And this, they somehow concocted that story of that Aryan superiority and Aryan race. And he was able to tell them that we are the strongest ones and no weaknesses. And ultimately, they could not sustain themselves. And nobody can sustain. Kodak and Nokia, yeah, they must have convinced themselves that nobody can beat us. Our technology is there permanently. And management also probably bought the same story. They didn't have to do any market survey. Pearl Harbor attack was guarded by a very good contingent of Army, Navy, Air Force of the US government. And they were not even in the World War. The World War was fought between Germany and other countries here in the Europe, and that side Japan and the southeastern regions here. So US was not in the war, but they had a contingent there. And they were all together, right? From morning to evening, they're together. Evening to night, they are in the clubs. A very, very close-knit type of friendship, family, Army, Navy, Air Force, senior officers together. And sometimes one person or odd person will say, we are getting some intelligence reports that, Japanese might attack us. Now, they are irrationally proud of their strengths. Everybody will put him down. Hell with you. Don't talk nonsense like this. You're all negative all the time. It's not possible, na? How will they come from such a long distance? Impossible for any Japanese Air Force planes to attack us. So they were very cozy in their own happiness. Nothing will happen. And one night, waves and waves of Japanese kamikaze fighters. It came and bombarded the entire Pearl Harbor. 50% of the Army, Navy, Air Force assets there destroyed. And an article came in the Harvard Business Review, and they coined this term called groupthink. It was first used by them. And that's what brought them into the Second World War. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been in Second World War. So they get a sort of illusions of invulnerability, group morality that we are the greatest, and they will apply direct pressure to somebody who doesn't want to conform with them. Israeli attack on Entebbe. Yeah, Entebbe was a hijacking, na?
Yes, sir.
So you may say that Uganda under Idi Amin.
Correct.
So he also must have convinced his people that nobody is going to attack because Israel cannot come all the way. And they agreed. Nobody can come. And they lost. And all the passengers were released on that Entebbe operation. Correct. So there is an example, another army operation example there. Self-censorship members. I will not tell because if I tell something, I will become the bad guy. No? Even if I had an idea, I will not tell because out of 10 people, only one I am telling something. So kyun bolne nice, jane do. And they will protect each other and the team from hearing any disturbance. So guard against groupthink in a team because it may look very, very close-knit team without any dissenting voice. That is also dangerous. There's one more called Abilene paradox. Anyone knows Abilene paradox? Abilene is a small town in the US. Anyone has heard of this? So Abilene is a small town. And this came as a case study in one, I think, Harvard or some other study. The name doesn't have any great significance, but based on a story, anecdotal story, this is named. Abilene, from Abilene, 50 kilometers away, one small village in the US on a hot summer day. An old man like me, his wife, his son, his daughter, his daughter-in-law, his son's wife, all sitting together, looking at the hot weather, dusty environment conditions, and looked at everybody's face. He said, "Yeah, in logo bore ho raha hai. So let me suggest something." He said, "Let's go to Abilene, na? Let's go for a dinner in Abilene." The wife said, "Yeah, bahut din ho gaya. We are not going to Abilene for quite some time. Chalte hain." Son said, "I will drive you." And daughter-in-law said, "Okay, 3 log ja rahe hain na, to hum bhi aate hain." So all 4 of them drive to Abilene on a dusty summer road. And when they went to that place, the dinner was lousy. They didn't enjoy the dinner also. They ate the dinner, came back, again tired, driving their 50 kilometers on a dusty day. Again, they're sitting in the drawing room, and old man again looks at everybody's face. Nahi, maja nahi aaya na. When we didn't enjoy the... Immediately, his wife pounced on him. "I never wanted to go. You started the whole thing, and then I agreed." Son also said the same thing. "You people wanted to go, no? I had no idea of coming. But since you are going, then I had to take you there." Daughter-in-law said thing. That means privately, nobody wanted to go. Publicly, nobody wanted to say, "No, let's not go." Because nobody wanted to be a dissenting voice. Based on this, if you search for Abilene paradox, there's a 10-page PDF file where they applied this Abilene paradox to companies where companies have gone down. Companies have gone down because people in the company were not opening their mouth when a stupid idea was being discussed about the business possibilities. Have you seen it in meetings? In meeting, everybody agrees, boss suggests something, then everybody agrees, shakes head like this, "Yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir." The moment they come out of the meeting, one person says, "What is wrong with this boss? This is not going to work at all. Why is he suggesting?" And then if somebody says, "Why didn't you open your mouth there in the meeting and say it is not working?" Why should I open the mouth? You all agreed, no? So why should I become the bad guy? Everyone thinks it's a bad idea, but nobody wants to say it is a bad idea. Have you seen this in meetings happening, in your own meetings, where you are part of the meeting and manager, you didn't agree with the boss's ideas? If it is yes, yeah, Rakesh sir has said yes. I have seen many of them very often. Nobody wants to bell the cat because why do you become a bad guy? So that is precisely what is known as the Abilene paradox. So teams, you have to worry about groupthink, and Abilene paradox may be at work some places, and it is the responsibility of the team manager to ensure that these things do not happen. That means the manager should be open to criticism, open to feedback. Because if that blind spot is there, somebody has to show the blind spot. So how to handle this group thing where nobody wants to come up with something? Encourage. The managers should encourage sharing of viewpoints in a very, very non-defensive environment. Like we make breakout rooms in Zoom. We can also make subgroups in the meeting and say, okay, now discuss the problem and come back and deliver your own solution. Assign one member to play devil's advocate. Review the decision after concerns apparently. Then let the devil's, or you can use things like 6 thinking hats, where you are putting on different emotions to the decision-making process. So any method you can follow. One more thing that team managers have to keep in mind is the hierarchy of needs. Each team member will be motivated by where exactly is in the hierarchy. Physiological just stands for roti, kapda, makan. Whether that is being taken care of or not, whether the adequate salary is given, whether increment is given, whether that person is getting promotion after 3 years. Otherwise, he'll feel psychologically let down by the management. So each member of the team has to be assessed by the manager where exactly this person is fitting. Because somebody is still struggling at physiological, then you only give them, hey, do this work. It is very important work. He may or may not. Some people may, but some people may not reach that stage of self-actualization that I'm doing work for the sake of work. Safety. Is there any job security here? And Rakesh sir is the one who's talking about safety as a mindset. Now, if safety is not taken care of, even if I'm getting extra salary, I may not be feeling safe because I'm worried about my own life there. Social, do I make friends there? Or the working environment is friendly there? Esteem, what work I'm doing, whether it is giving me respect in the social order. Do I get self-respect? And fourthly, I don't care about any of these things. I just do the work because now work has become a source for my happiness. Now this is Maslow. And when did Maslow write this one? Any idea? All of you must have gone through management training. And Maslow was the first one to talk about hierarchy of needs. So, but when did he write? How many years back? Some rough 1 century back, 2 century back, 3 century back, in right? I also don't remember exact year of publication of this article. Yeah, around that, I think 1960, 1950. 100 years. You can say 100 years. I mean, it was extreme, you can go. But look at this. This is from Taittiriya Upanishads, where Taittiriya Upanishad says we are made of Pancha Koshas. Annamaya Kosha, which is roti kapda makan. My subtle body, which is just surviving on the food that I eat. Pranamaya Kosha is the energy that I get by breathing, because without breathing, there is no energy. Even if my stomach is full, the moment my breathing stops, that is the end of my life. Stomach may be full. So I don't die because of lack of food. I die because of lack of oxygen. When the oxygen intake and carbon dioxide output coming out stops, that is the time. So prana is there as long as the respiration is there. Then Manomaya Kosha talks about the emotions. Emotions are nothing but social. My respect that I get. Vijnanamaya Kosha stands for my knowledge, my skill set. What can I do something? And if I do something, I'll be respected. Oh, he's a very good workman. I get esteem not because of my position in the company. I may be a CEO, but I am not good at my work. Nobody will respect me. Only in front of me, they'll respect. Outside, they will not respect. So esteem comes from Vijnanamaya Kosha. And then I don't care about anything. I am in a situation where it is Anandamaya Kosha. I am full of bliss. Written maybe some 3,000 years ago is what is Maslow's theory, which was written less than 100 years ago. So when I come to day 7, I'm going to talk a little bit of this also, how each of these koshas can be looked after so that our body, mind, heart and soul, where body comprises of both Annamaya as well as Pranamaya. Mind is Manomaya. Emotions are Manomaya. Intellect is Vijnanamaya. And bliss is Anandamaya. Now I want you to do some survey for yourselves. In a piece of paper, write down this. Number 1 question, you can have only one answer, either which is the most prominent ones for you. My strongest skills are, it can be A, it can be B, it can be C, it can be D. So just write down one. Somebody write down one, only one choice, A, B, C, D. 2, the best way to describe me is, which one? 2, A, B, C, D. 3, what helped me the most to be successful? Which one is A, B, C, D? 4th is what people are most likely to notice about me. I muted all. And 4 is what people are most likely to notice about me. So you are ready with your answers? 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you on some 30 seconds. If it is done, then you just write it in the chat box because I have muted all of you. You don't have to tell me, Raghavan sir. It is for your consumption only. Just put it in your own things. Not for me. So, okay. All done. I'll go to the next one. My most important trait is A, B, C, D. And last one is, I am best described as A, B, C, D. And then in this table here, ST equal to 1A plus 2. So suppose you have written 1A as the answer, then this gets 10 marks. If you have also written 2A, that also get 10 marks. So wherever you are written, don't worry about this part. So you put 1A, 2A. If you have written B, then you tick here. If you written C, you have to tick here. If you written D, you tick here. And then count or sum up what is here. Suppose you have ticked 2 of them here, that will be 20 points. Suppose you have ticked 4 here, that will be 40 points. And keep the data with you only. It is for you, not for me. I may be wondering what is ST. Yeah. So give me an example. Like what? Which one is one answer for you, Rakesh sir? One का कौन सा टिक किया आपने? 1B. So you will put 1B is here, na? P में. So you put circle there. 1B. Suppose you have for 2 you have put C, then circle here. I'm saying hypothetically. For another question you have put D. Anywhere D is there, this is to be ticked. Suppose you have anywhere you have ticked 6A, then 6A will be ticked here. Then horizontally sum up. Then you see how much your ST, how much is, anybody volunteers to tell me how much is this last score here? Previous slide. Yeah. Any volunteers for every option had 10 points. Every option is 10 points. So suppose you had ticked 3 of them here, you'll get 30 points for ST. Suppose you had ticked 3 points here, you'll get 30 points here. Suppose you had ticked 2 points here, total can be 60 only because there are only 6 questions. Anyway, the videos will be with you, so you can do it at a leisurely pace later also. So let me go to the next one. Now, ST stands for structured. You are a person who is structured person. That means you believe in hierarchy or authority, chain of command, division of labor. PO means if you're getting more number of marks here in the, you're getting more number of marks in PE, that is people orientation. If you're getting more marks in the PL, you are a political person. That means you know how to manage the intricacies of the office space. You are good in forming coalitions. Your political is not in the bad sense. You know how to adjust with people and negotiate and bargain and form coalition, networking, all those things. And if you are getting more marks in the this symbolic SY, then you are focused on the traditions and culture of the rituals and all those things. So each one is made up of something. When I did this one, I came across as I guessed it was people orientation, because each question, my strongest skills are interpersonal skills. The best way to describe me is good listener. What has helped me, except when I'm teaching, I'm listening all the time. What has helped me the most successful? Coach, develop people. And what most are the most noticed about me? Concern for people. And my first important trait is support others. And the best describe as a humanist. So mine is 60 out of 60 came into P. Because the everything 1B, 2B, 3B, 4B, 5B, 6B, 60. And I'm 0 in this one, what you call the structure, 0 in political, 0 in symbolic. So if you may have 40-20, then that majority, wherever it is there, that is your dominant trait. So it gives our management style. I mean, there is somehow we are made up of, there's no point in changing it, because this is what you are as a person. So make best use of that. No? So if people oriented person, make use of that in developing people. A structured person, develop procedures and processes, because that is what a structured person does. A political person, use in get the consensus for all people. Symbolic person, I mean, in the defenses we use so much of symbolism, because the regimental culture, the history of the regiment and battalion, all those things. I mean, somebody needs to inculcate that also. So everyone has a place. So you have to find out what you are and make use of it. So structured will be authorship, specialization, excellence, people-oriented, care, love and collaboration. Politics is power and justice. And symbolic is culture, values and so on. So if identify, see, here what he says is that in building teams and coalitions, people think that your logic will work. No. Logic will work only to a certain extent. Relationships are required in building a team. So identify relevant relationships. So a political person may be needed here. Who might resist, why and how. And develop people wherever possible. Then you require somebody who is a people-oriented person. And if step 3 fails, put it as a procedure. Because in an emergency situation, you can't do anything about getting consensus from people. So you have to identify who is who in your team and make sure that you assign that role to that person. One more topic that we are going to talk about is synergy. Synergy stands for pooling of ideas. You'll get a better idea. And there is, if you have an apple and I have an apple and we exchange apples, then you and I will still get one apple each. But you have an idea and I have an idea and exchange these ideas, then each of us will have two ideas. George Bernard Shaw. So free giving of ideas to one another, we are able to get the best out of the team. Now tell me why the birds fly in V formation. As soon as they take off, they get into V formation. Why so? Let me see whether your environmental studies knowledge is still there or not. Narayan sir, I'll probably send you the PPT, that part of it. You just send me a mail. Air drag is the wrong word. Something to do with air only, but not drag. They can help others, correct, but however they not resistance. Drag and resistance are same. And with this technique, they are able to fly 70% longer distance than they are flying alone. That's the reason they are able to come all the way from Siberia to India during the winters. Ananya said, forgot, fly arrow something word. Okay, I will give you a hint. Now what happens is, when the first bird flaps its wings, now when you a bucket of water, when you like a child playing with a bucket of water, does the water go all the way to the bottom of the bucket? No, the water comes out from the sides. It doesn't hit all the way because water is not compressible. Similarly, when the bird flaps its wings, the air doesn't go all the way to the ground. The air has to come up as updraft. The updraft helps the other two birds which are following. And that's why they condition themselves in such a manner that distance is there. So they know exactly where the air is coming out. What flaps its wing, it has to come from the sides. So the upward movement of the air which has gone down because of the flapping of the front bird, aerodome, I don't know whether that is a word or not, but anyway, this going down, coming up behind, and that helps the bird that you don't have to do so much of extra effort because there is a cushioning effect of the air which is coming up. But who is going to get tired fast? The front one. Because there is no more, so it will take its place in the bottom and the behind, and somebody other bird will occupy its place. So they are doing synergy. They can fly much more than what they could have flown alone. So 1 + 1 is not equal to 2. 1 + 1 equal to 3 or 10 or 100. How synergistically they are able to operate. I had the good fortune of going to Antarctica in 1991. I was part of this 10th expedition, scientific expedition to Antarctica. And we spent the time between summer and winter. Before winter sets in, you have to come back. Otherwise, sea will be frozen, our ship will be crushed to pieces. So we go from here in December and come back in March. And that is the winter for them. And that is the summer for them. It is winter for here, the summer for them. And Antarctica is home to these penguins, cute little things. I had taken my own photograph. It is. And during winter, the temperature goes to -60°C, and 3 days at a stretch, strong winds of 300 km/h blowing across, and hundreds of kilometers. There is no shelter. It's all plain land, no plant, no vegetation. And these penguins have to stand there on the slippery ice, and visibility is 0 because snow doesn't fall. Snow just flows. In fact, even before the winter, during summer itself, we had an episode like that, and we are all watching from the bridge of the ship The helicopter was blade was tied with a metal chain, and the metal chain broke and helicopter blade broke. And you're watching from inside. And penguin has to stand there. And what they do is they make huge huddles of hundreds of together, constantly moving like honeybees, so that one single penguin gets a few seconds of the chilly weather, chilly wind, minus 60, and at 300 kilometers, the wind chill factor will be minus 80 or minus 90. And they survive for 3 days because they can't even go to the sea because sea is frozen. So penguins have got synergy. Trees have got synergy. This is the redwood forest in California. 1,500 years old. 300 feet tall. Storms cannot disturb them. They don't get uprooted. Because under the soil, they entwine their roots with the roots of the other redwood trees. Like a proper network inside the... So they look after each other. They help each other. So trees and penguins, everybody has got synergy. Human beings have forgotten, unfortunately. So unless we get back the synergy, the teams will not reach the pinnacle. Teams will survive, but they can't reach beyond that. One more concept is known as the mastermind, which Napoleon Hill talks about. Coordination of knowledge and effort in spirit of harmony between 2 or more people. It can be 2 people, it can be 5 people. So any big business has been set up in this country, for example, or anywhere in the abroad. Give me names of those people who started that. So one person or more than one person. There is an Indian example also for that matter. 2 people working together built up a big empire as a company. Let me see who can answer. And 2 of the biggest companies in the IT world as of now. Apple, Steve Jobs and Wozniak, no? His name, Wozniak. Flipkart, I was thinking, I thought of it in the evening. I said, let me see whether others can. Flipkart, Sachin and Binny Bansal. And Microsoft, Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. When 2 brains work, HP, yeah, but I don't know the names. Huh? If Raghuram sir, if you are able to put it in the chat box, then I can read it out for that. Hewlett, correct. I think correct. The name has come from there only. Correct. I forgot. The name has come from these 2 people. So anywhere big business or big empire has been set up, and if you take a Ramayana, it is Rama and Hanuman. And if you take Mahabharata, it is Krishna and Arjuna. 2 minds working together, they are able to resonate together the ideas from one brain to another brain, and both brains will attract from the universe and they'll get the best of ideas which nobody can think of when working alone. So that is called a concept of mastermind, popularized by Think and Grow Rich author Napoleon Hill. Now, trust is required in teams. Now, for trust, there are 2 things required, character and competence. Now, all of us must have gone through this exercise of in trust fall. Now, let me unmute you people so that I am getting bored without the ask to unmute. How do I unmute all? Okay, please unmute yourself. Ask all person to unmute. Yeah. So you can speak out. Another 10 minutes left. You can speak out also. I'm giving the freedom. Like teacher tells, "No, abhi baat karo." So I'll also tell you.
I've actually done this.
You've done that. So I'm giving a scenario here. Suppose I started following, and these people who are holding you. Suppose they decide, let us come out. What will happen to the person? He'll fall, na?
That's all.
The next time we'll say, abhi karo, ek zar aise mazak kiya. Will I go there?
No.
No.
Okay. They will not go, but they will hold it like this. But unfortunately, it may so happen that this person is too heavy and they are not able to hold and he'll fall down. Will they do it again? Will he do it again? Because one place character was missing. They did not keep the promise. Other people, character was there, but the competence was missing. They were not fit enough for that role. So to trust somebody, we need both character and competence. And character can be further divided into integrity and intent. Competence can be divided into capabilities and results. Out of these four, or out of this two, which is easier to measure? Is character easy to measure or competence easy to measure?
Competence.
Competence. Show me your certificates and show me your project experience. Competence taken care of. So can you trust somebody just because of competence? No. He should also have character. Then only I can trust. Can you trust somebody just because his character is good and competence is not good?
That's where you take references, right?
That's where
You take references.
Character के लिए reference लेते हैं. What I'm telling is, सिर्फ character ठीक है करके, can you trust that person? Competence का doubt है करके?
No.
Correct, because he may be a good person, but for this role I need competence also. Just being a good person is no good for me.
True.
And whenever we fail in our work, trust is like an eraser. It goes smaller and smaller after every mistake. But have you seen, when you go to a bank, we trust the banks with lakhs and lakhs of rupees, our money. Do they trust us with one simple 5 rupee pen? What do they do with the pen? They tie it. Why? Do they think that we lack integrity? Do they think that we go only the intent of stealing pens? And results are showing that pens have been lost. So what is the thing which is missing? They have no faith in our capabilities of putting the pen back after the use, because habitually after writing we put it in our pocket, na? कहीं भी. वो habit से उनको problem है. They don't doubt your integrity. They don't doubt intention. गलती से डालता है पॉकेट में, because उसका आदत है पॉकेट में डालना अपना खुद का पेन. So all four are required. Then only can trust. Now, capability results से certificates पता चलता है. Integrity intent is indirectly known. So let us see what behaviors are required to. I'll give one example. ये कौन है?
Volkswagen.
हाँ, उसमें कैरेक्टर प्रॉब्लम कहाँ किया था?
जब उसका एमिशन को
चीटिंग किया, and to get rid of that tappa, they had to spend millions of dollars, na?
Yeah.
This one TVS company, you heard?
Yes.
It started as a small company. Ananya is there from Chennai. So this I heard from somebody from Chennai when I was in Cognizant. There are two bus companies, one called TVS, another called TST. And they started as bus companies, running city buses. The TST buses were very badly maintained. Bharosa nahi hai, anywhere you can stop, then people had to push it. But TVS was very, very perfectly run, well-maintained buses, dot on time. And people can say, TVS bus gaya, 10 baje ka, 10 baje hoga, because people didn't have even watched that time. No? And TST was called in Tamil, Tallungo, sir, Tallungo. Means sir, push, Tallungo means push. Tallungo, sir, Tallungo, TST. And Ananya, what will be the expansion for TVS?
I've not heard this story.
Tallavenda, sir. Means no need to push, sir. My bus is well maintained. So Tallungo, sir, Tallungo did not have the competence to run the buses, and therefore the company did not last long. TVS started the bus company, is doing very well even now after maybe 75 years. So competence is required, character is required, competence is required. So these are the behaviors which will earn trust. One is be honest, don't distort things, use simple language. Don't say in complicated language and say, no, this is not what I meant. Yeah, you heard it wrongly. The next time I'll say, I don't care about you. You say you are saying something and meaning something else. Then be a good listener. This we'll talk tomorrow about when talking about communication skills. Be courteous, show respect. Every one of the employee, even at the bottom of the pyramid, is to be respected. And don't fake it. It has to be genuine. It has to come. And if we don't give respect, there are other things which can happen. Examples of factory workers killing their managers, or even soldiers taking a gun and killing their officers in the defense forces as well as in the police forces. Once in a while it happens because continued disrespect. Know the names of people. And that is the best sound for, the sweetest sound for any person is the name, own name, being called out by my manager. Feedback in private. Recognize contribution, that you are giving respect. Do not talk ill of others behind their back. Don't badmouth. Negative talk should not be done when people are not there to defend themselves. And if they told something in private, information to you, don't disclose it to anybody else. That means it has to be kept confidential. Otherwise, you will lose trust. After mistakes, apologize. And don't apologize in this manner. I'm sorry. I'm telling you I'm sorry. What else I can do? No, that is not apology. That is arrogance. Apology has to be genuine. It has to come from the heart. Apology has to be immediate. It cannot be after 2 years. Oh, sorry, last 2 years back I made a mistake. No. And apology has to be with compensation for the damage caused. And those who can be humble are really the great ones. One should apologize. Make promises only that you can keep. And deliver on the promise. That means you have to continuously develop your capabilities. You can't rest on your oars. Demonstrate completion. Do not blame others when things go right. And if something happens because beyond it is, then you should be the one to take accountability of that. Take responsibility. This is a good story you must have heard about Abdul Kalam and Satish Dhawan. First rocket launch, Abdul Kalam was the project engineer. Satish Dhawan was the boss, ISRO. Press is waiting. Unfortunately, the first rocket launch failed. And Satish Dhawan took the ownership. He said, I am the ISRO chief. I will explain to the press what went wrong. He took ownership. 6 months later, this time successful. Satish Dhawan told Abdul Kalam, you are the project engineer. You brief them how you have done it. So good bosses take blame for the failures of the team and give credit to the team when things go right. Delivering the promises. Pulwama terrorist attack was there. Air Force went and did that Balakot strike. Results delivered. Trust in our armed forces went up. And same thing in Galwan. Speak the truth. Speak the truth is example of Manik Shaw in the year 1971, March. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi called him because refugees were flooding into our country. He said, do something. And Manik Shaw said, as an army chief and Prime Minister tells me to do something, that means go to war. So Indira Gandhi said, yes. Then she said, I would rather resign, rather go into war now. Then she was taken aback. She asked why. He said, this is March. By the time we prepare it is June. June is monsoon. East Pakistan is riverine country. My army cannot proceed because they'll break all the bridges. The Navy can't operate because Bay of Bengal will be affected by the monsoon, rough sea. Air Force cannot operate because cloudy weather. Now I can guarantee you that it will be a sure defeat like we had in the China War of 1962. Therefore, I do not want to become party to that. She understood. Speak the truth. Tough stuff. Because chief talking to the Prime Minister, direct boss. But it's a tough stuff. He has to tell. Don't skirt the real issue. Say they're karenge, dekenge. No. Nahi karna hai. Then she asked, okay, kab karna hai? Then he said, December mein karna hai. And rest is history. Bangladesh was liberated. So that is what you need to do if you have to earn trust. And team mein trust building is very much important because nobody can be team leader unless everyone has trust in your capabilities. So that is thank you from my side.